I was wiping down the counter at the cafe, half lost in my own thoughts, when the little bell above the door chimed. It was the same sound I'd heard 1,000 times, but this time it made my heart stop. I looked up, and for a second, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. Because standing right there, 10 years older, 10 years changed, was the girl I had once thought I'd spend my whole life with. My childhood crush. The one who had filled up every page of my notebooks, every corner of my imagination. Her hair was longer now, falling in soft waves that I swear I'd once promised myself I'd run my fingers through someday. Her smile, it was the same, though bright, almost too bright for this dim little cafe I owned. And when her eyes met mine, it was like being 16 all over again, awkward and clumsy, but completely helpless against the storm in my chest. For a moment, neither of us moved. The years seemed to shrink down to nothing, like we had just left school yesterday. I wanted to say her name, but my voice got stuck in my throat. All I could do was grip the counter, afraid that if I let go, my knees would buckle under the weight of everything I was feeling. Then she lifted her hand to tuck her hair behind her ear, and that's when I saw it. The glint of silver. A ring. It caught the light and stabbed straight into me. 10 years. 10 years of imagining what it might be like if we ever saw each other again. 10 years of wondering if she remembered me the way I remembered her. And now, here she was, standing in my cafe like a dream come back to life. Except she wasn't mine anymore. She belonged to someone else. She walked toward the counter, each step pulling me tighter into a past I'd never really escaped. I tried to put on my professional face, the kind I used for every customer, but my hands were shaking. She noticed. Of course she noticed. She always did. "Hey," she said softly, like no time had passed. Like we'd just seen each other yesterday. My heart nearly broke right there. I wanted to ask her everything. Where she'd been, why she left, if she ever thought about me when the nights got quiet. But all I managed was a weak smile and a clumsy, "Hi." Her eyes searched mine for something. I could feel it. And for a fleeting second, I thought maybe the ring didn't mean what it seemed. Maybe there was still some part of her that belonged to me. But then she asked the one question I wasn't prepared for. Her question hung in the air, gentle but heavy. "So, how have you been all these years?" It sounded simple, casual even, but it cracked something open inside me. Because how do you sum up a decade of loneliness, half-formed dreams, and silent nights spent replaying old memories? How do you tell someone that their absence shaped every single day of your life? I swallowed hard, forcing a steady tone. "I've been okay. Busy with the cafe, you know. Keeps me grounded." She smiled faintly, her eyes flicking around the place like she was proud of me, like maybe she'd always known I'd end up here. That smile made it harder to breathe. I could still picture the two of us years ago. Me, a lanky teenager with more hope than sense, and her, the girl who could light up even the dullest classroom just by walking in. Back then, we were inseparable. We'd walk home together, talk about the future like it was ours to claim. I remember sitting on the swings at the park, her head tilted back toward the stars, and she said, "One day, we'll laugh about how small this town feels." I believed her. I believed every word. But life has a way of pulling people apart. She moved away right after graduation, without much of a goodbye. No letter, no promise to keep in touch, just gone. I told myself it was fine, that she deserved to chase bigger dreams. Still, the silence that followed burned deeper than I admitted to anyone. Now, here she was, back in the place I'd built for myself, wearing the one thing that told me she'd built a life far from me. I glanced at the ring again, almost hoping I'd imagined it. But the metal glistened stubbornly under the warm cafe lights. She leaned against the counter, tapping her fingers nervously, like she wasn't sure if she should even be here. "I thought I'd never see you again," she whispered. The truth was, I had pictured this reunion 100 times. Sometimes in my dreams, she'd rush back into my arms, confessing she'd missed me too. Other times, she'd be a stranger, looking through me like I was nothing more than a faded memory. But this, her standing here, familiar yet untouchable, was worse than anything I'd imagined. "Neither did I," I said, keeping my voice light, though inside I was unraveling. The silence stretched, thick with everything unsaid. She glanced at the tables, at the people sipping coffee, unaware that my whole world had just shifted. Then her gaze returned to mine, softer now, almost guilty. And just as I felt myself drowning in all the things I couldn't ask, she reached across the counter, her hand brushing mine ever so slightly. "Can we talk?" she said. Her voice trembled. "Can we talk?" The way she said it, it wasn't casual. It wasn't the kind of line you throw out when you run into an old friend. Her voice cracked just enough to make my pulse race. I nodded, though my chest tightened with questions I wasn't sure I wanted answered. We moved to a small corner table, away from the chatter of the other customers. She sat across from me, hands wrapped around a coffee cup she hadn't touched. Her eyes flicked to the ring again, almost like she wanted me to notice, like she was daring me to ask. I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I asked the safest thing I could. "So what brings you back here?" Her smile faltered. "Family stuff. My mom hasn't been well, so I thought I'd spend some time here, help out." She paused, her fingers tightening around the cup. "And maybe face a few things I left behind." My chest ached. Things she left behind. Was I one of them? I wanted to be angry, to ask her why she vanished without a word, why she let me carry 10 years of silence like a punishment. But the anger never reached my lips. All I saw was the girl I had once loved sitting in front of me, older now, maybe wiser, but with the same spark in her eyes that had once undone me. "You could have called," I finally said. My voice came out sharper than I meant, and her head dropped, shame coloring her cheeks. "I know," she whispered. "I should have. I wanted to, but—" She stopped herself, biting her lip as though the words were too heavy to let out. The air between us thickened. My heart pounded, torn between wanting to know everything and being terrified of what the truth might do to me. I couldn't ignore the ring, its glint mocking me from her finger. Finally, I leaned forward, my voice low. "So, are you happy?" Her eyes shot up to mine, wide and startled. For a second, she didn't answer. Her lips parted, then closed again. And then, without warning, she slipped the ring off her finger and set it on the table between us. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice trembling. She pushed the ring slightly toward me, but didn't take her eyes off mine. My hands itched to reach out, to lift it and ask every question swirling in my head, but I knew better. This wasn't just a ring. It was a symbol, a barrier, a warning that whatever she was about to say could shatter me. Her voice dropped almost to a whisper. "I shouldn't be here. I wasn't supposed to come back." My stomach twisted. "Then why did you?" She looked down, fidgeting with the edge of her sleeve. Because I couldn't stop thinking about you. Not for a single day. Not for a single hour. Even with everything, she cut herself off, like she was afraid of speaking too much, afraid of opening a door she couldn't close. My chest tightened. My mind raced. 10 years of imagined reunions, of longing, of imagining her in someone else's arms. And now she was telling me that in some hidden corner of her heart, I had never left. I wanted to yell, to ask her if she remembered the nights I stayed awake, just replaying her laugh, her smile, the way she made everything feel lighter. But my voice was stuck. I just sat there, leaning closer, my eyes searching hers for the truth. She swallowed hard. "I made mistakes. Big ones. And her words died in her throat. A shadow passed over her face, the kind that only comes from carrying guilt too heavy to bear. My pulse pounded, each beat screaming that whatever she was hiding, it would change everything. I wanted to grab her hand, to tell her that it didn't matter, that somehow we could start over, but I couldn't. Something in her expression told me it wasn't that simple, that the secret she carried wasn't about forgiveness or love, it was darker. She leaned back, staring at the ceiling like she was trying to pull courage from thin air. "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered. I leaned forward again, desperate for answers, but she shook her head. "I can't just say it out loud yet. You need to know the truth, but it's not easy. It's not what you expect." My throat tightened. My heart hammered like I was on the edge of a cliff, and she held the final step, just out of reach. Every instinct in me screamed that this moment would define us forever. Then she paused, her eyes locking onto mine with a strange mixture of fear and urgency. "If I tell you now, everything could change. You might never forgive me." Her words hung between us like a storm cloud ready to break. I leaned closer, barely breathing. "Tell me," I whispered. "I need to know." Her hand trembled as she reached for the cup again, and in that instant, I realized, whatever she was about to say, it wasn't just a confession. It was a turning point. And then she finally spoke. Her voice trembled as she finally said the words, and my stomach dropped. I I wasn't just engaged. I'm married. I froze. My mind raced, trying to process it, but before I could even speak, she added, almost desperately, but it's not what it seems. He doesn't know. I came back because I couldn't keep lying anymore. I blinked, heart hammering. Married? 10 years gone. A ring on her finger. A life I hadn't even imagined. And now she was telling me it was a lie. My emotions collided. Anger, confusion, longing, all at once. She looked at me, eyes pleading, and whispered, I never stopped thinking about you. Not for a second. But if I tell you everything, it could ruin everything. My life, maybe yours too. I wanted to reach out, to shake sense into her, to demand answers. But something inside told me, this was bigger than both of us. Something dark had been lurking behind the smiles, behind the time apart. And just when I thought I could prepare myself for what came next, she leaned closer and said a single sentence that made my blood run cold. It's not just my secret. Someone else knows, and they're watching us right now. Her words hit me like a punch to the chest. Someone else is watching us right now. My mind went blank for a second, then filled with images I didn't want to see, shadowy figures, hidden cameras, texts I hadn't received. Fear and adrenaline surged through me, and I realized this wasn't just about her past or my longing anymore. Something dangerous was real, right here, in my cafe. I grabbed her hand, trembling. Who's watching us? She shook her head, panic flashing across her face. I can't say here. Not yet. But they know everything about us, about what happened 10 years ago, everything I tried to hide. My pulse raced. 10 years of memories, of longing, and now the past had caught up in a way I never could have imagined. My cafe, my safe little world, suddenly felt like a trap. Then, as if confirming her words, my phone buzzed. A single message lit up the screen. I see you. Don't make a move. Her eyes widened, and she pressed a hand to her mouth. They know I came back. They know I'm talking to you. We have to get out of here. I glanced around. The customers were oblivious, sipping coffee, chatting, scrolling on phones, but in the shadows by the window, I thought I saw movement. Someone was there, watching, waiting. I took a deep breath and looked at her. We need to leave. Now. She nodded, grabbing her bag, and we slipped out the back door into the alley. The cool evening air hit my face, but it did little to calm the storm inside me. As we rounded the corner, she suddenly stopped, gripping my arm. There's something else, she whispered, voice shaking. The truth, it's worse than you think. The reason I left 10 years ago, it wasn't just me running away. Someone wanted me gone. And now, they're coming for both of us. Her words cut through me. I realized that this was far bigger than lost love or past regrets. This was survival. And the person who had haunted her life, and now mine, was still out there. And in that moment, I understood nothing would ever be the same again. We ran through the empty streets, the cool night air biting at our faces, hearts pounding in unison. Every step felt like escaping a shadow that had been waiting for us all these years. She held my hand tightly, and I realized in that instant how fragile and precious this moment was, how much it mattered that we were still here, together, despite everything. We ducked into a quiet side street and paused to catch our breath. She leaned against the wall, gasping, and I took a long look at her. The girl I'd loved as a kid, the woman who had haunted my thoughts for a decade, was trembling, but there was a fierce light in her eyes. It wasn't just fear, it was hope. I need to tell you everything, she said, her voice steady now, even if her hands shook. She told me about the past 10 years, how she had been trapped in a marriage that was more about control than love, how the person watching her, her so-called husband, had a darkness that scared her, and how she had finally found the courage to escape. Every word made my chest ache, not just for the danger, but for all the lost time we could never get back. I listened, holding her hands, letting her spill the truth that had been buried too long. And for the first time in 10 years, I didn't feel regret for the past. I felt relief that we were here, alive, facing it together. When she finished, silence settled between us, heavy but calm. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but I knew that for tonight, we were free. I smiled at her, and she smiled back, a little shy, a little scared, but real. You know, I said softly, 10 years is a long time, but maybe it was just the right amount to make us stronger, or at least ready. She laughed, The sound like music I hadn't heard in a decade. Ready for what? For whatever comes next, I replied. And in that moment, we didn't need answers, not completely. We had each other, and sometimes that's enough. As we walked back toward the cafe, cautious but unafraid, I glanced at her hand. The ring wasn't there anymore, not on her finger, not between us. It didn't matter. What mattered was trust, honesty, and the chance to start again. The world outside was quiet, but I could feel the future waiting for us. Unwritten, uncertain, and full of possibility. And even if danger still lurked somewhere out there, we had survived this night, survived each other's secrets, and somehow survived ourselves. Sometimes, love isn't about perfection. It's about holding on through the impossible, finding courage in the shadows, and realizing that some connections, like ours, are too strong to ever truly fade. And as we stepped into the soft glow of the cafe lights together, I knew one thing for certain. Some chapters close, but the story always goes on.